Dr. Wayne Knapp.
Mr Chairman, just reading into the record the Minister's notes in Part 2. Part 2 of the bill outlines the requirements that applicants must meet in order to be eligible to receive a licence from an accredited body, including that the requirement, as has been noted, that every applicant be fit and proper. And that licence must be issued for a maximum of 5 years. Conditions may be imposed upon the licence to specify the kinds of issue or audit in respect of which the auditor is licensed to act. It's worth noting that a person issued with a licence is required to complete programs to maintain their ongoing competence. And where an auditor has failed to satisfy the minimum standards, the bill enables a professional accounting accredited body to suspend or cancel that auditor's licence. The Financial Markets Authority may grant accreditation to any person provided they meet minimum prescribed standards, including that they be fit and proper and may be subject to conditions. Once every 4 years, the Financial Markets Authority must also regularly review the quality of their systems, policies and procedures of every audit firm. That includes at least one licensed auditor. The committee recommended that the Financial Markets Authority publish an annual report of quality reviews conducted and be allowed to publish further reports on particular quality reviews. Accredited bodies are responsible for investigations and disciplinary actions against their members who are licensed auditors. The SOP provides that an accredited body must give the Financial Markets Authority reasonable assistance and adds an offence provision where a body fails to do this. The SOP further provides for the cancellation of registration of an audit firm found to have obtained registration through false or misleading actions. Finally, the SOP provides for the protection from liability for accredited bodies in the execution of their statutory auditory regulatory functions unless it has been shown it acted in bad faith or without reasonable care. Mr Chairman, these provisions are needed to protect regulators from legal threats by parties whom they are actually investigating and to provide them with the incentive to act firmly when it is in the public interest to do so.
Call Claire Curran.
Mr Chair, I'd like to take a call in Part 2 of this bill around the licences, registration, accreditation and the role of the FMA, in particular with regard to licensing and licensing firms versus licensing individuals issue. This bill proposes the licensing of individuals rather than firms. Only licensed auditors who meet the requisite prescribed minimum standards and are otherwise fit and proper person to hold a licence will be issued with a licence by an accredited body. And I just want to refer to one of the, some of the submissions that we received during the Select Committee process, that the New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants considered that the primary focus of the licensing regime should be on firms rather than individuals. And it recommended that the bill be amended to provide for firms to be licensed with nominated individuals being identified by the firms or evaluation by and registration with accredited bodies. And they noted that this was an approach adopted in the United Kingdom. They considered that licensing firms reflected on how auditors presently operate and that the central role that a firm's systems and processes play in audit quality. And their preferred model was that the licensed firm would be engaged to do an audit and would select which of its registered audits would conduct the audit. There was discussion around whether that the changes should be made to reflect the major role that the firm's policies and procedures play in promoting audit quality. we noted, or it was noted, that the system appearing in the UK Companies Act of 2006 wasn't fully consistent with the New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants' preference for firm licensing as an alternative for individual licensing. And that system, UK system, licensed individuals and allowed firms to do issuer license audits, provided that the majority of partners in that firm were licensed auditors and that the firm was under the control of licensed auditors, which is essentially, I think, the guts of the system that we've ended up with. The second issue that I'd like to just touch on again, as I touched on in an earlier speech on this, was around the limitations on liability. And we did consider quite seriously whether this bill should be expanded to introduce measures to limit auditors' liability, but we couldn't recommend amendments to that effect because the advice to us that was given at the Select Committee was that there wasn't any scope for it under the bill. However, the commentary on the bill refers to this issue because we recognise that some form of liability limitation would harmonise, and that's an important issue, to harmonise the New Zealand system with international practice. And it's my understanding that this is generally the intent of this legislation and accompanying legislation with it, to do with establishment of Financial Markets Authority, is about harmonising New Zealand's legislation with international law and international practice. So we spent a lot of time on this issue, and we asked for a lot of advice on international practice and considered it very carefully in the light of the jurisdictions that have adopted alternative liability systems and some of the approaches that have been adopted elsewhere. And I note, that there hasn't been any response again from the Minister around where this might be going and what might be happening next in this space. And as I refer back in my previous speech around financial literacy, I think it would actually be useful if the Minister could give us a response.
Call Stuart Nash.
Thank you.